purpose of this video is to introduce some basic and advanced extrication techniques that we will use on the fire ground. During live training, we will go through a lot of these techniques, but I wanted to put out a video or series of videos that would introduce the techniques prior to actually utilization at training. During this video, I'm going to pause to critique or to add in information that is relative to our operations within our response area. So without further ado, let's get started on some basic extrication techniques.
Greetings, and I want to thank you for checking in on another Fire Engineering Training Minutes. My name is John Alston. I'm the Chief of the New Haven Fire Department.
So we're going to skip a little bit of Chief's introduction here, and we're going to get to the actual extrication. One thing that the Chief does mention is that sometimes with smaller departments, such as his department, they have to do things sequentially because larger departments can do things simultaneously. So we're going to go through both of it, but we're going to spare some time here.
Many times, the best possible solution and situation for us is that the door is intact, that the window is down, so that any of the work that we do, any glass that's broken, won't affect our victim, will drop down into the door. But the worst case scenario is the glass is intact. The door has been damaged and concaved, and the cage has been damaged. So what we want to do is make sure that we protect our victim, we protect ourselves, but now we all have to remove the glass. We have devices like center punches, you can find them anywhere. If you can't use one of those, a halogen with a point that you'll be able to use as well. In this technique, we want to make sure that we have some tape available so that we tape the window to limit the amount of glass that will fall out and give us some type of control to remove the glass and begin to remove the door. In this situation, with the window not completely intact or closed, we want to find the lowest point close to the rear so that none of the glass drops down onto our firefighter, gets inside of their gloves or their sleeves.
I can tell you, anytime that you break a window, you want to go at the lowest corner. That just makes the most sense because when the window breaks and all the pieces fall, they're going to fall down into that window space. Now, I can tell you, out of all of the times I have ever done an extrication, I have never thought about grabbing a roll of duct tape and putting it on the window. It's never been something that I've been trained to do. It's never been something that's been brought up in training or conversation. And I can see its practicality for keeping the window intact. However, if a window has tint on it, or a lot of these more modern cars will have safety glass that's laminate, that window is going to stay intact. That, and also the majority of that glass fell inside the passenger compartment anyway. When you break it in that bottom corner, whether it's a center punch or with a halogen, which I prefer the halogen because we have that. We don't have center punches issued to us unless you're going to purchase your own. If you break it in that bottom corner, and especially with the halogen, you're not going to even get your hands close to where glass could fall into your glove, between your sleeve and your glove. That and our cufflinks protect us from glass going into our sleeve. So you can use that technique. However, it's not going to be an expectation for our crew, and I'm not going to do training on it.
As we mentioned before, previously, many departments, depending on the size and the number of personnel that will respond to the scene, will be able to perform these tasks simultaneously. Other times, we would have to perform them in sequence. Before we had battery-operated hydraulic tools, many times we would take a halogen, bang it in to get a purchase point, and create our purchase point by working and prying that open. That would be a 2 firefighter minimum operation.
So that's not entirely true. You can do a 1 firefighter operation to do that. However, it would be just a little bit more labor intensive. A couple things to add to what Chief is saying is where that seam is between the wheel well and the door, you can do a lot of things to create a gap there. You can hit the door right behind that seam to bend that metal back. You can hit the wheel well to do the same thing close to where the seam is to bend that metal back to get a view of that hinge. You can also take that halogen and pry down with the adze, a sledgehammer. You could even take the tool that's in that firefighter's hand and you can hit that door to create a gap. You can also use the edge of those spreaders and you can pinch that seam and you can pull back towards the door and create a better viewpoint for those hinges. So there's a number of ways to do that that can be a single firefighter job. Using the spreaders is a little bit more labor intensive because of the weight of the spreaders. However, it is still something that's possible. The technique that he's going to show you as a single responder is extremely effective, and I have used it a couple of times. The bad part about it is if you don't get it in the right spot and you start peeling that door away and start really stretching and pulling that frame, the shell away from the actual door, it becomes counterintuitive. But you'll see how effective it is.
This technique that we want to teach you is one firefighter with the spreaders driving a door that's been concaved to force the door in the direction that we want and to expose the hinges.
So you can kind of see right there at the top of the door where the two parts of the door, the outer shell and the inner shell, are starting to split. He stops before because that's the full length of the tool, but you have to be wary of that when you're using a tool for that purpose.
As you can see, now the hinges are exposed. Depending on the width and length of the tool, this normally would pop this top hinge for you, allowing for easy access, but again, driving a door that's damaged away from our victim. If you notice that the metal is tearing, and what happens with a damaged door, you can stop. There's nothing wrong with stopping, closing the tool, repositioning it underneath to get a better purchase. Always allow the tool to complete its action. As you can see, this door is badly damaged. And so to ensure that it goes in the right direction and we don't have firefighters standing too close to the sharp metal, the firefighter can now take a piece of webbing out of his pocket. The next arriving firefighter now can assist him in ensuring that the door moves in the right direction. This door is badly tearing, so the purchase points are most important now to stay as close to the hinges and the strongest door position as possible. Now that this has been done, the only thing that are left are wires. You can cut those wires, but here's the most important part that we need you to take a look. What you will notice with this technique, by attacking the top hinge in the manner that we did with one tool, popping the top hinge and continuing with the bottom hinge, the weight of the door is now driven away from our victim. This is a severely damaged door, but all of the sharp edges and the glass are moving away from our victim. The weight of the door also, by dropping, exposes the nadir pin. The nadir pin is made famous by Ralph Nader, the consumer advocate, who realized many years ago that people were being thrown from their cars during accidents and high impact. He wanted to make sure that there was a rating on the locks for the doors to keep people in, and we still refer to that as the nadir pin. With the weight of the door dropping, the nadir pin is exposed. There's no prying. We can easily place the tool and remove the door.
So again, one thing that I have to reiterate is this is a one-person extrication. On most incidents, we're going to be able to use 2 pieces of equipment at a time. But if there is only one person, you can see how effective you can use one piece of equipment.
As you notice, the tool had to be vertical. Using the weight of the tool and ensuring that it's vertical as opposed to us prying horizontally ensures that the tool will stay in place, and the weight of the tool takes the weight off of the firefighter and transfers it to the vehicle as we begin the spreading process, thereby removing the door. So to wrap up this short portion, if you see a badly damaged door, a victim inside, limited tools, limited personnel, in a short time, even with a smaller size tool, one firefighter can remove a badly damaged door in no time. Also, as with anything that we do, we want to make sure that our eye protection is in place, our gloves, our hoods are in place, and we also want to make sure our coats are closed up. And showing the one-person technique, sometimes there's not going to be enough time to insert your step chocks. If we were doing a full extrication, the most important thing is vehicle stabilization. For the purposes of this training sequence, we wanted to show how quickly one firefighter with one tool could extricate a person with a damaged door. I want to thank you for tuning in to Fire Engineering's training.
So we're not going to finish this fire engineering video, just the last few seconds. Firefighter 1 starting to give me that evil stare down, as you can see him there on the right side of the screen. But anyway, this is how effectively you can remove a door by yourself. Now, the basic techniques that we're going to commonly practice use spreaders and cutters. And you'll see cutters in different videos here in just a little bit. If you are a single responder or a single firefighter that is trying to perform an extrication, you can do it by yourself. Right? This is a stable vehicle on stable ground. It's not going anywhere. There's very little material that's compromised on this vehicle. So if you have the ability to do it, you can. However, if that door frame is compromised or there's something else that's going on that's not allowing you to have that kind of access, that's when you have to utilize other techniques. So we're going to look at some other techniques here over the next couple videos. So the next one that I want to do that's pretty popular for us is the minivan sliding door. So a lot of people have problems with the sliding door and where to do extrication, how to do it. And so this is a quick video. I probably won't pause until later on, but it's a sequence that if you do this, I have done this, it works extremely well.
Go.
Hey everybody, we're just going to do the rear sliding door on this Chrysler minivan. Just so you guys know, we've got an upper track, a middle track, and a lower track, which are all points of contact. Plus you've got a latch at the rear and possibly a latch at the front. My starting points for this maneuver are going to be here and finishing down on the bottom, okay? And it goes like this. My entry point is here. Work it out for my gap. Back in. squaring up on the track. Once the top there up top, back in again. Create the V.
So one thing I wanted to mention before we get further in is you saw him pinch and then pull on the door. Well, when he first started his extrication, it's on the track, right? That's where he pinched and pulled, was on the track with these sliding doors. You don't want to go above or below. You're trying to force that part of that door because that's going to be the weakest part and that we want to clear. So I just wanted to point that out. Force on the track, not above or below it.
Door comes off. Lay it down like so, and just spread the track. And that is your sliding door removal. Thank you.
So pretty easy, all right? Pretty self-explanatory on a sliding door. Is we're going to attack the tracks. That's the weakest part of those doors, and that's where we want to get into and what we want to do as far as forcing any sliding door. One technique that wasn't shown was creating a gap. Again, you can put it in that window space of that sliding door, and you can use your tool to pry up to also create that gap. Very similar to what the first firefighter did in the first video, where he put it between in that window space and then pried against the door, and right there. You can do that also with the sliding door. I have found that's what's been most effective is tacking right there at that track. So before we get to the flap down roof, one of the more common techniques that we'll use, it's considered an advanced technique, is the dash roll. Okay, this is from LA County, and it's going to show you some basic maneuvers for a dash roll. We'll probably go over some more during training.
Your second option when performing a dash displacement is a dash roll using your ram.
When performing a dash displacement, stabilizing under the A-post is recommended. Take only the glass necessary to perform your extrication.
Again, no tape.
Peel and peek the interior, removing the covering of the A-post, B-post, C-post, as well as the roof rail. Looking for airbags, airbag gas canisters, seatbelt retentioners, and seatbelt backing plates. When cutting seatbelts, pull them all the way out and then cut at a 45-degree angle. Create a purchase point. Here again we use a vertical lift, also called a window spread, to create an opening on the pin side. Place your spreader into your purchase point to pop the door open.
To remove the front door, it is usually faster and easier to cut the hinges. Make relief cuts in the front fender so you can spread it upward. Removing the front fender makes it easier for you to see the A-post and firewall that you must cut.
So before we get into the next cut, I want to pause there. That was something I learned when I watched this video, was exposing that part. It's not something that I have practiced, nor have I been trained on until I watched this video and learned about it. I do see where it can be effective. However, you're going to cut the A-post regardless, and you're going to cut it low as you can possibly manage. That's practical for you. The cutting on the fender is not something I've practiced as well. What I have always practiced is actually taking the spreaders and crushing right there in order to compromise that part when you do the dash roll. Not saying that the cutting method isn't effective, it's just not something that I have practiced. So when we do training, we can give both a shot and see which one works better.
The most important step in this dash displacement is the relief cut in the A-post. Make one single cut at the bottom of the A-post between the hinges. Cut through the entire A-post and deep into the firewall. Place a relief cut at the top of the A-post, cutting a 4-inch piece out of the post.
So a couple things. That second cut with the 4-inch, that does make sense. I have not, again, practiced that. I was taught to cut straight or at a 45-degree angle at the A-post to where as it spreads, it's not going to get caught on itself. Most of the time you cut at a 45-degree and you cut up towards the roof line. That way as you spread, it will lift up and away and not dig into the A-post at the top. So doing that 4-inch section is effective, so it's something that we can try as well. And then the double cut on the bottom of the A-post between the hinges is also something that's effective. One technique that I have used for my whole career is doing a pie cut at the bottom in order to create more space for other techniques that could be used for a dash roll or dash displacement. Again, they're showing specifically for a ram. We're going to go over a couple different techniques on dash roll and dash displacement when we do the training. But again, that double cut on the A-post between the hinges, you can cut through the firewall like they did, or you can make a pie cut. Either one will work.
To confirm that the fender rail has been compromised, consider cutting or crushing it. Identify where your shock tower is located and stay away from it. Place stabilization under the B-post. Anchor your ram against the B-post and roll the dash up and away. When performing a dash roll on a two-door coupe or full-size truck or SUV, you may need to use a modified Halligan anchor point due to the large doors on these vehicles. Place your Halligan in line with the rocker panel and hammer the horn into the rocker panel where needed. Stabilize under the Halligan, and then using the Halligan adze as your anchor, place your ram against it and roll the dash up and away. The dash roll creates an obvious patient removal problem due to the ram positioning. To remove your patient, crib up the displaced dash, and then you can safely remove the ram.
So we won't go through the rest of the video because they just show step by step what they did in the beginning. But the modified Halligan is actually something, again, I just learned from this video. It looks like it's effective. Most of the time what I have taught or I have learned is to use your spreaders as an anchor point in these vehicles as well. So obviously there are multiple tools for one job, so it's something else that we can utilize and train on to become more familiar with. As far as the RAM creating issues, yes, it does. What I have done in the past is normally once you get enough clearance, you can release that and the dash won't fall back on the patient. Cribbing does help because now you know for a fact it won't. But again, it's not something that I have practiced, but it's something that we can give a try at our training. So we're going to do a third door technique, and then the last one we'll do is a a flap down for auto extrication. So again, LA County.
When you need to access trapped patients in the back seat, perform a third door technique. We're going to demonstrate that now.
Break only the glass necessary to perform your extrication. Using your spreaders, pinch the car body above and horizontal to the rocker panel, as well as vertically just inside the C-post. This will make your cuts easier. Make a relief cut as deep as possible horizontal to the rocker panel, and then cut the top of the B-post just below the roof rail.
So for you extrication people that are wondering, well, hey, why didn't he peel and peek before? It's because they're building on the dash roll technique they had done prior to. So they had already performed the peel and peek, so they did not need to peek again because they had cleared where the B post is. A point of clarification for those of you who don't know what we're talking about when we say B post is we work from the front of the car to the rear of the car, where the first post you run into, or that first part of the side of the car where the windshield is, that is the A post. Then the next post you can see where the door is, the door frame, that is the B post. Then where the next post would be in that window frame would be a C post. Then any other post after that is D, E, F, so on and so forth, depending on the size of the vehicle. So that's all we're identifying is A post is the front one, and it's always going to be that front one where the windshield is. The B post is the first pillar or part where the driver's side door is, C post, D post, so on and so forth until you get to the back of the car. Also, a point of reference is we're always talking about the car oriented with the tires on the ground. So if we say cut the top of the A post, that always means the top of the A post, even if it's on its roof, because it's how the car is oriented when it's on its tires. So the top of the B post would always be near the roof line, no matter if the car is upside down or right side up. So top is always the top, bottom is always the bottom, because we're always talking relation to the car on the tires.
Make your last relief cut vertically downward just inside the C-post, following the angle of the wheel well. The Sawzall works well for all of these cuts. Place your spreader just inside the B-post and spread the third door down and away from the roof rail. Pinch your spreader onto the third door and push it down to the ground, creating a large access to the back seat.
So again, we're not going to finish the video. It does the same thing, just kind of repeats everything. So remember, we're going to break the window. We're going to pinch at the rocker panel right there at B, and then right there inside, right next to the C post. And then you're going to start making your cuts as low as you can on the B post, and then as high as you can on the B post, and then cut that on the C, and peel it down. As he mentioned, a Sawzall works great for all of these. Even every single cut he makes, you can use a Sawzall for. In this third door technique, a Sawzall is needed for that last cut to be able to get down deep into that side panel and pull that off of the car. So if you're going to perform a third door technique, have a Sawzall on hand. Okay, so the last video that I want to go over is a flap down roof on a side resting vehicle. We get a lot of these on the I-15 where we'll have vehicles roll and they'll be on their side. So it's imperative that we know as a crew how we're going to manage extricating patients if they're in this vehicle. If we can pull them through the windshield because they're alert and oriented and we can make sure we do it without injuring the patient, great. If they can self-extricate, even better. This is for those times that you have a patient that can do neither one of those things, and we still need to remove the patient from the vehicle.
For this evolution, we will be performing a flap down roof evolution on a side resting vehicle. Initial stabilization has already taken place utilizing Rescue 42 struts and a tension buttress system. The two firefighters approach the vehicle and initiate a cut at the base of the A-post on the downside, making sure to operate on the outside of their tool. After the base of the A-post is completed on the downside, the firefighter then comes to the base of the A-post on the upside. Peeling and peaking has already been performed by the engine company on scene and ensured that there are no gas cylinders where we are performing our cuts. On some modern vehicles, the B-post is at a thickness where it will require a double cut. Make sure to monitor tool rotation, ensuring that none of your body parts are going to get pinched. At this point, the front half of the vehicle has been cut.
So a couple things to mention here is when he says the tension buttress system. So you can see that they have that Rescue 42 stabilization rod against the bottom of the A-post on that roof side of the car. A tension buttress system works with that come along that you can see that's attached to the bottom of the plate of that post, and they actually have it under the car and attached to the frame on the other side as low as they can get it, and then they ratchet it down to create tension against the car itself. Now another thing that can be done that you may not see here is that they may have another rod on the other side of that and it's stable on both sides, and then they pulled those two rods together with the tension buttress system, with one rod being in the frame on the bottom side of the vehicle and another rod being on the bottom of the A-post on the roof side of the vehicle. So one thing that might give that away is if you look down at the shadows and the front of the car, you can kind of see what looks like a space it looks like a rod on the bottom right there. That may be that rod that I'm talking about, another Rescue 42, where they have it on tensioned on both sides and it's up against it like that to create it so that car won't rock back and forth. You can attach it to the frame of the car. The only problem is if that car decides to roll one way or the other, that could possibly compromise your tension buttress system. However, it is possible to work it with just the frame of the car because you're pulling tension to that buttress system and you're going to butt that up, so you're preventing the car rolling toward you. The likelihood of that car rolling the other way, it just isn't feasible because of the tires and the way the car is laying. So first technique is tension it to the frame of the car on the bottom side of the car, or you can utilize another type of rod on the other side and then tension them together on both sides.
The first firefighter hands the tool to his partner at the rear of the vehicle and grabs a Sawzall in order to initiate cutting the glass. The firefighter will cut the glass as close to the windowsill as possible. On this vehicle, as many modern vehicles, the passenger windows are laminated safety glass. The firefighter at the front then continues his cut of the glass, making sure that we have full cuts, thickness, all the way through the windshield. The firefighter at the rear finishes the cuts on the downside C-post. At this point, the two firefighters will flap down the roof parallel with the ground. The goal is to be as smooth as possible, ensuring that we do not upset the stabilization that is in place. The last thing to be cut is the B-pillar on the downside. At this point, the two firefighters have completely removed the roof, giving full access to the patient compartment. If you have a suspended patient in the driver's seat, we can roll the gurney directly up to the vehicle and place the patient directly onto the gurney.
So those were all the videos that I wanted to go over for auto extrication and basic techniques. There are other things that we will train on, as far as doing a double door removal or doing just a dash displacement versus a dash roll, using a two rescuer technique in order to remove a door, using the cutters in specific situations, using the spreaders in certain situations. There's lots of different techniques that we can use. Again, this is just an introduction of the many different types of techniques that we can utilize when performing auto extrication. If you guys have any questions on anything that you've seen, I can provide you the links, or just look up auto extrication on YouTube and it will start lining you out with lots and lots of different videos on any topic you can imagine. If you want to learn how to do a clamshell, you want to learn how to use your spreaders with chains, there's lots of different techniques that can be utilized on the fireground when it comes to auto extrication. If you don't understand what you're watching, just bring your questions to training and we will go over those techniques, or you can contact me directly and I'll answer your questions the best I can. All right, we'll see you guys at training, and thanks for watching.